All rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. Governor, roll call.
Mr. Vice Chair, I'll call roll. Commissioner Bullen?
Present.
Commissioner Metcalf?
Present.
Commissioner Peterson?
Present.
Commissioner Duran? Commissioner Bacon?
Present.
And Vice Chair Halby?
Present.
Mr. Vice Chair, we have a quorum.
Very good. All right. First matter of business is approval of minutes from September 4th, 2019.
I move that we approve the minutes as printed. Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Old business. Governor, do we have old business?
Don't believe we have any old business at this time, Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay. We'll move right on to new business. All right. First on the agenda, we have Cool PZ 1907-16, a major general plan amendment changing the land use designation from industrial and manufacturing to urban neighborhood on approximately 25 acres of land as described below. The northwest quarter of Section 15, lying west of the Southern Pacific Railroad, Township 7 south, Range 8 east of the Gila and Salt River Base, and Meridian. Pinal County, Arizona, except the north, 1,855.51 feet thereof. Chairman?
Commissioners, thank you. This, as the subject matter implies, is a major general plan amendment, so we'll have 3 of these tonight. This is our once-in-a-year opportunity to bring these changes before you and make adjustments to our general plan as needed based on applications and other things. So the current general plan we have is it's a really good general plan. It was developed by staff, but more so by our Rick Miller, our city manager, when he was the planning director, and it was really based on a lot of different things. And Tim Hansen also was instrumental in this plan. But this plan actually guides the city in how we approve things throughout. And like I said, it was adopted on June 23rd, 2014. So all this is we're coming to you to adjust a portion of it that we've seen needs adjusting to where what we want to do in this area that Tim is showing you up on the screen is in the general plan, take an area that was industrial and manufacturing and convert it to urban neighborhood, which is very flexible. And we're doing this because, as you've heard, we have Nikola and some of the other industrial areas out there. There is a need for housing as part of that process, and so we've identified some properties, and more so the property owners have identified some land they'd like to do some housing in for workforce. And so this is our effort to assist with that, and we think it's the appropriate use in that area that we're showing. And so we're coming before you to bring this general plan amendment to you for consideration and for public comment. And if you agree, then we would send this on, and it would go to Mayor and Council for a public hearing on the 12th of November, and actually go to, then they would vote on it on the 25th if you so choose to approve this. And Tim's here if you have any other questions myself, and tonight we're lucky we have the city manager Rick Miller. He can jump in too if he needs to. So we're here to answer any questions you may have.
How is this in relationship to where Nikola's land is that they're going to be building on? Can you go back to that?
Nikola's,
north of Hannah?
This is south of Hannah. Nikola's land is actually south of this property, about, let's see.
2 miles south of Eureka,
yeah.
I believe.
Yeah, it's about 2 miles.
And this looks like it's directly across from the Core Civics
Yes.
locations?
Yeah, and the beauty of workforce housing in this area, not only can it serve Nicola and some other future industrial areas we're looking at, there's a possibility of some core civic employees needing or wanting to relocate at a closer place where they could live right across where they work. So I don't know if they'd like that, but it could be something they could do. So we think it's a great location for that.
And what we're doing is only going to affect that one 25-acre parcel. The other parcels that are adjacent to that, north and south, are not affected by this?
That's correct.
And what are they zoned to be?
They're still, well, as far as the general plan, they're still industrial manufacturing.
Okay, so in reality, you could have an industrial plant built on either side of this.
There could be, that's correct. The one thing we would do during the site plan is make sure that there's a buffer and the appropriate buffer between any industrial and also this area, because they know where they're at. They're going in specifically to serve for the housing needs of the industrial areas. So it's designed. It's going to be designed a certain way to fit in with that characteristic. So we don't envision that the people in this area will have. Some of them will need transportation. Some may be construction crews at first. We have plans to run the transit bus down from the city and take people to town if we need to in the mornings and the evenings to go buy groceries. So we're planning ahead for things like that.
What is this quarter-mile buffer? What does that mean? What is it going to buffer?
Tim.
It's required to be shown as the general plan amendment process requires this exhibit to be submitted with the application.
Well, this quarter-mile buffer around it, is that going to limit the property owners in any direction around that from doing what they want with the other properties?
It's basically to allow you to see what's immediately adjacent to that property.
Right.
But it's not going to limit the property owner to the north or south end if whatever they want to do with that property?
No,
It's not going to have a bearing. That buffer does not have a bearing on that.
that buffer is not a restriction at all. It's just a reference point. So
Okay.
you can see nearby designations or uses.
And they're currently zoned I-2?
This property is not actually in the city right now. It is part of an active annexation that we filed in July after we met with the property owner and he determined he wanted to go forward with this. His desire is to develop this into multifamily workforce housing. He's done some projects like this in the valley. Lafferty Development's a pretty big company. Retail, coffee shops, gyms, things like that on the ground floors with residents above those. And so he needs to process a PAD to be able to do that kind of mixed use and open space. And that's the reason for the amendment. PAD is not allowed in industrial manufacturing. It has to be urban neighborhood. So if he's successful with changing his land use designation, then he will follow through with the planned area development, which will come back before you guys with, this is kind of an overview of what he's looking at. The PAD itself would be more detailed.
And the
Just don't
city
wanna
of
spend that money if you don't know if you're going to get it yet.
the city of Eloy and their recommendation?
Originally, this was sent to us by the City of Eloy staff. They said this is more in Coolidge and sent it forward to us to talk to them. So we'll talk about, we did have comments from the City of Eloy on another portion of this agenda, and we'll tell you about that, which we expected. But I don't believe we've received one from the City of Eloy on this specific site.
This was covered in their comments.
Right.
Their comments were the same for this and another amendment that's coming up. It was basically, this is in Eloy's planning area.
That's the same with all the way down to Nicola. I mean, that's a comment they've made since we annexed years ago down to, Hauser Road. So and they called me and told me they were going to send the letter.
It is also in our planning area. It's within both jurisdictions' planning area. Not uncommon to have overlapping planning areas. There's a portion down by Tweedy Road and 287 that is in Coolidge, Eloy, and Casa Grande's planning area.
Right. Yeah, so we do overlap with Casa Grande in some areas. Florence and others near Attaway and 287. I mean, there's All cities do that because you don't know whether you're going to go into those areas in the future. And what we do is we follow what the property owners, what city they want to be in. So a lot of this is a response to property owners wanting to be in the city of Coolidge. So, you have comment?
I have no further questions.
Okay. At this time, we'd like to open it up to the public. If anybody'd like to speak on the matter, please come to the podium. No? Okay, we'll close it to the public. Can I get a motion?
Vice Chair, I move that we approve Cool PZ 1907-16 as written.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next one, item B, Cool PZ 19-07-17, a major general plan amendment initiated by the city of Coolidge to expand the planning area boundary from 183.1 square miles to 185.4 square miles and assign land use classifications in 3 areas, generally described as follows: north of Selma Highway, west of Tweedy Road, east of Curry Road, and south of State Route 287, north of Hannah Road, west of State Route 87, east of La Palma Road, and south of Corman Road, north of Shed Road, west of Fast Track Road, east of Vale Road, and south of the Cap Canal. Director Lopez?
Vice Chair Halby, Commissioners, again, this is a general plan amendment we're bringing forth before you. In this area, we're adding some areas to our planning boundaries, and we're expanding them by the 183.1 square miles based on requests for annexations that we've had and some activities we've had around on our boundaries that we need to correct and adjust or expand. So all this is some adjustments. We did have comments, again, as Tim Hansen expressed, that City of Eloy made a comment that these are in their planning area also, and so they wanted us to make note of that and be aware of it. And but these are pretty straightforward, as the maps show. We're expanding some areas, and some because of some applications we've had, and so I don't know if we can answer any questions you may have. Tim, do you have any other comments?
I'll kind of tell you about each of these a little bit, I guess. Area 1 is, you maybe remember earlier this year, we processed a conditional use permit for coronal solar that covers this area and an area that's already in our city limits. The area denoted in Area 1 to change the land use is part of an active annexation. So it's just a response to that. Area 2, we have some interesting parties within that area who are looking to come into the city and do some development, not currently in our planning boundary, getting ahead of the game before we annex them and assign zoning. We're just making that adjustment. And Area 3 is also an expansion based on an active annexation that we filed earlier this year. And so we're just bringing the boundary out to match what could potentially be new city limits.
We'll answer any questions you or the public may have, if you have any.
I see the city of Eloy didn't like this one either.
Commissioner
They're not
Metcalf,
thrilled.
they're not in concurrence with it, I guess, is the best way to put it.
What about the ability to service south of Santa Rosa Canal?
Well, what we do when we get to the point of annexations and all these things and development, we create a plan on how the city services. But because it's agricultural right now, There's not a lot of things that are required out there, but fire does respond out there. PD can respond out there. We have a mutual aid agreement, so a lot of times, just with some of the things we've just recently had, a lot of our surrounding communities work together with them to respond to any issues. Eloy is very good at fire responding along with Coolidge if it's something on our border. Regional also responds, so I mean, we have the resources that we put in the plan. And then the water provider, we've worked to the city to sign an agreement with Global Water for wastewater and water treatment out south of 287. Steel Road, that area to the south, Arizona Water to the north. So we have quite all the areas covered that need to be covered for future development.
Vice Chair Halby, you asked about our ability to serve south of the Santa Rosa Canal.
Yes.
That's actually where the Nikola Motor Company has acquired their property to build a $1 billion manufacturing plant. So that's in our jurisdiction down in there. We fully intend to serve that area.
Perfect. Thank you, Rick. At this time, we'll open to the public. Okay, we'll close it from the public. Can I get a motion?
I move that we accept Cool PZ 19-07-17 as written.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. All right. Cool PZ 19-07-18, excuse me. A major general plan amendment to add neighborhood business zone C1 to the list of appropriate zoning in the downtown core island use classification. Director Lopez.
Vice Chair Halby, Commissioners, again, this is a general plan amendment that we saw a need to make some adjustments. Tim Hansen identified, and we talked about some issues with our downtown core that we didn't allow the C1. We allowed C2 and some other categories, but we thought in discussions along with our city manager that C1 should appropriately be in that area. So all we're doing is bringing this to you to get that C1 designation in the downtown core in the general plan, so we can have those uses within the downtown core.
How does that change affect? What do the businesses gain or the property owners gain by going from C2 to C1?
Commissioner Bolin, we're not really rezoning anything. Within each land use classification, the general plan, it lists allowable zonings that you can do in that classification. So, like our first item, he couldn't zone PAD because industrial manufacturing didn't allow it. Within downtown core, it lists C2, C3, I think commercial office and some other things, but C1, which is the least useful commercial zoning, it's not in there, and it should be. We're not changing anybody's zoning, but we're giving them the ability to rezone something to C1.
So they could zone it C1, 2, or 3, depending on what they want to do?
Not 3.
Not 3.
C3 is not allowed in the downtown core.
So C1 and C2, and would they have to get a variance or something to change so they'd be open to do whatever C1 and 2 allows on that property?
That is correct.
And also, where we have some C1 that's lighter, and all this, when you look at the zoning code, C2 allows all C1 uses, but we may have areas in the downtown core that we want to limit to C1. So we're allowed to do that without putting it to the heavier use. And if you look at C1, bakeries, banks, barbershops, those things are allowed. You can also put those in C2, but C2 then opens it up to a lot of other things that are a little heavier. So we may, as a city, decide we want to approve C1 in the downtown core as zoning when it comes before you. I think, right, Tim? And then we could recommend to you that it stays C1 in certain areas instead of C2 because it's next to some apartments.
So what we're doing, is that changing it to C1 and could be, or what's it doing?
No, all it's doing is changing the plan that the city follows for zoning. This isn't zoning. It's just the general plan that guides us on what's allowed in certain areas.
Director, as I understand it, allows for more use.
And let me just, it's really kind of complicated, and I'm going to try to make it really simple. And I know for the audience, this is going to be crazy because of the C1, C2. This is a land use plan. The general plan is a land use document that's required by the Arizona revised statutes. Any city, town, or county that administers or has a zoning code or a zoning ordinance is required to have a general plan. The general plan is nothing more than a land use plan. One of the elements is a land use plan that we have to develop that basically shows how we would like to see the city develop over time. And when we talk 185 or 186 square miles, you know, much of that's not even in the city limits today. But it's just a generalized land use plan around the city that identifies the land use pattern around the city. Now, if somebody wants to zone a property, we go to this document, the land use plan, and we look at the land use classification for what they're proposing to rezone. If they want to rezone something in this area, it has to be consistent with this general plan. And so within every land use category, you have a couple things. You have a chart that lists the appropriate zoning within each of those land use categories. And so, for instance, the appropriate zoning within, what is this land use? This is the downtown core. The appropriate zoning within the downtown core, which is a land use classification in the general plan. If somebody wants to rezone it for residential R2 or R3, which is oftentimes appropriate, more residential in a downtown area means more customer base for the retail shops or business services. So that's allowed. Neighborhood business, which is C1, would be allowed in the downtown business, subject to your approval tonight. General business zone, which is C2, a zoning district, that's allowed in the downtown core, as well as commercial office zone. So two different things. What we're talking about tonight, these general major plan amendments, they're only allowed one time a year under state law. You can't do them, willy-nilly. Only one time a year. We have to publish and present a public participation plan where we have these hearings to make these changes, and that's why we're doing them all tonight. And then the other issue is zoning changes, which is not what we're talking about tonight. We're not affecting zoning. We're not affecting anybody's zoning of properties. This is merely amendments to the general plan, which is the land use plan. Okay? Probably made it even more muddy, but best I could.
I understand what you're saying, Mr. Miller. I was just trying to figure out if it is in any way going to limit anybody. It sounds like it's going to open it up a little bit more.
It makes it more flexible.
More opportunity for more different types of things that still fit within the commercial
Correct.
idea. Okay, thank you. I appreciate the explanation.
All right. I'd like to open up Cool PZ 19-07-18 to the public. Okay. Can I get a motion?
Commissioner Halby, I move that we approve Cool PZ 1907-18 as written.
Very good. Can I get a second? I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Excuse me. Cool PZ 19-08-25. Major site plan application submitted by Eastline Solar LLC for a 851-acre solar farm located near the intersection of Selma Highway and 11 Mile Corner Road, Coolidge, Arizona. Parcel number 401-20-004A, 401-69-001C, 002B, 401-85-0010, 0020, and 003, 003K, 003L, 003M, 003N, 003P, and 402-0200B. Mouthful.
Vice Chair Halby, Commissioners, This property, portion of this property was annexed into the city in 2015. Other parts were annexed in 2019. A conditional use permit for solar farm by P&Z was granted on November 7th, 2018 by Resolution 18-09. Other portions that were annexed in 2019 were granted a conditional use permit for solar farm on June 5th, 2019. So the conditional use permit's already done for the allowance of the property. The step that we're going through now is the site plan, in which we told you at the time they would come back and bring the site plan to you for review. And they have a PowerPoint presentation that they're going to make to you, and they're here tonight, and we'll bring that up right now.
Evening, everybody. I'm Jordan Levin, and I'm with S-Power. I'm the project developer for Eastline Solar. So just a little bit about S-Power. We are headquartered in Salt Lake City. To date, we have about 1.3 gigawatts of solar wind in operations in about 11 states currently. We have about 13 gigawatts under construction and in a pipeline. And we essentially are an independent power producers. We develop, construct, and operate renewable energy projects throughout the U.S. One thing that we like to describe how it we differentiate from other developers is that we like to invest in the local communities by building, owning, and operating its solar facilities over the life of the project. This consistency provided with our projects is unique to some other developers. We are committed, by bringing our solar projects to the area, we're committed to engaging with local schools and community through sponsorships, partnerships, presentations, site tours, and other educational programs throughout the construction and operation of the project. Basically, we like to consider ourselves a good neighbor, and we're here for the life of the project, so it's important for us to develop these relationships with the community as we come into the area. So this project in particular, Eastline Solar, it is actually, so pardon me, this says 875. It is 851 acres as in the application. This particular farm will be about 100 megawatts AC and 125 megawatts DC. As they mentioned earlier, we have a conditional use permit which was received on June of 2019 for one portion, and then an additional CUP was received previously. Today we are here for the site plan approval, and we're also working with SCIDD and CAIDD for some canal encroachment permits for our Gentai route, which we expect in early Q1 of 2020. Interconnection, so this project will interconnect at Pinal Central, which is about a mile north of the site. You can see on the diagram here, it's the green line running north on 11 Mile. We just finalized a design agreement with SRP, and we expect to have a generating agreement in place by the end of the year. In addition to this agreement with SRP, from an interconnection standpoint, we do have an executed PPA with SRP for 100 megawatts, which will deliver this power to a data center for Intel just north of here. I think it's in
Apache Junction or
yeah,
East Mesa?
yes, exactly. So that this project does have a power purchase agreement in place with the expectation to deliver power by the end of 2020. Some of the benefits to the businesses and residents of the area. We'll have about 150 to 300 people on site during construction. That will, depending on the life of the project, between 6 to 9 months of the construction period. We like to think about it so it's averaging about 80 workers per day. About over that time is over 90,000 worker hours. So that brings a lot of impact to the area. So the direct simulation with that many people to the local businesses, building materials, fuel, hotel rooms, et cetera. So along with that, you'll see a lot of the increased sales tax revenues for the county, as well as the property tax receipts over the life of the project. This particular phase has over $100 million project investment, including the land. Some of the other metrics that we have over there is that this project is estimated to generate about 277,000 megawatt hours per year. Some of the comparisons for that, can't really see it from over here, but that's about that'll power about 35,000 homes, and it will displace almost 200,000 metric tons of CO2 emissions, which is an equivalent to about 41,000 cars being removed from the road. So those are just some fun facts to kind of put it all in perspective about what this plant will do for the environment and for the community. This just kind of gives you a look at what the project schedule is. Obviously, right now, we're working through the permitting, interconnection, and engineering. We expect to have construction kick off in late Q1 of 2020 and have this phase come online at the end of the year. Beyond that, obviously, we've got asset management and O&M and teams that will be, keeping the project running on a regular basis. That's all I have for you guys.
Thank you.
I have some questions for you, so could you go back? I'm sorry.
We'll have the site plan up so you can look at it, and
Yeah, I've got it
I think
on my
Tim's
screen
trying to
here.
get that up.
Everybody has talked about the creation of heat from having solar project around, that there's some kind of a heat envelope that comes out about that. Can you address that? Is that something that has been found to be?
Teresa, are you able to answer that a little bit more? Teresa is our director of permitting, and she works a lot with environmental issues of this
Well,
magnitude.
Teresa?
Hi. So we have done some research on that, and there's a few different groups that are looking into that right now. Currently, there isn't any data that kind of like shows that there's a strong response to that effect of like a heat island effect. So I think so far it's we're unsure of that, but I don't think that that's a real issue.
Okay, the power that you're generating is going up to the substation that is to the north of you, correct?
Yes.
Is that going underground or above ground?
It will be, the transmission line will be 230 kV underground. That's what we are currently considering and working with Pinal County to permit and to design to their standards.
So there will be no towers to be dealing with the neighbors that are living between your farm and the generating station, is that
Correct. With the current plan right now, we are going underground.
what could change that? I mean, is that something we're approving tonight on how they're going to build, how they do that? We're not doing that. We're just approving
No.
that they can do
No,
it.
I mean, if I may just briefly, I think it'd be great if they put it underground. Obviously, that'd be the ideal situation. Oftentimes, though, these gen ties are above ground because of the higher voltage power lines. Most of the larger voltage, like 230K or 500K, those are generally above ground because of the heat that's generated from those power poles. But if they are proposing to put it underground, that's fantastic. But I don't think we put anywhere in our conditions that it be required to be underground.
The Gentai line is we're working with Pinal County. It isn't their jurisdiction, but our plan is to go underground for that Gentai line right now.
I'm just thinking of the radiation that comes off of power lines that could be a problem to the people living close to those power lines, that when they bought those houses, they didn't expect to have towers going down, between them and the road.
Yeah, we don't expect to have that issue because it is our preferred route to go underground, and we're just finalizing those details. Oh, yeah, it's in the existing transmission corridor, up 11 Mile.
Commissioner Bowen, there is giant power lines running down the east side of Limaw Corner Road now that they will be utilizing that same ground for.
Yeah, there's also Western Area Power WAPA lines from the federal government that run through there. I found those when I was at the county issuing permits, and I'm like, I found these huge easements that are already there from the federal government right along that line. So they're existing since the 80s, well before that. I worked there in the 80s, so it's
Yeah, been there for a long time.
been there a long time.
That old wooden line was there for
That's
about 60 years.
that's exactly
I
right.
just want to know if we're going to be adding a lot more to it.
Hmm?
I mean, if we're adding another 230 lines in there, we're adding quite a bit more to that,
Mhm.
to that area.
It's an existing greenbelt area, though.
Yes, it's already restricted as far as building underneath it.
It's already restricted how?
You can't build underneath those lines. The power lines, you can't put houses under there.
Have to be so far away from it.
Right, I know. I know what they're supposed to do.
I think it's worth noting that we're not deciding whether or not they can do this tonight. We've already done that. We're merely evaluating whether the site plan complies with the conditions outlined in the conditional use permit. Setbacks, road frontage, landscaping, and anything else was in there.
Did we have any conditional recommendations when we passed that conditional use permit?
Their setbacks for conditional uses in the agricultural zoning district are 50 foot from the property line, which applies to the panels themselves, not necessarily the fencing.
And didn't we approve the conditional use permit with the line above ground?
I don't think it was really specified there.
You weren't sure what you were going to do at the time, if I remember right. So we didn't really.
Yeah,
We just know there's going to be a line connecting this solar plant to the substation.
that's correct.
Yeah, and that process, we attended the Gentai public hearings they had at the Artisan Village for the public to come see where the lines are going to run. So they conducted a whole nother process aside from ours for the Gentai that complies with the Arizona Corporation Commission requirements. So we attended those just to be as a supporter and make sure everything is done correctly, and so we could witness it. And the public showed up and were asking questions, and they were graciously answered everything that came before them. So
I think when they came for the conditional use permit, they were also entertaining Sunshine Boulevard as a possible route, which is
Right.
not an existing transmission corridor.
Right.
So rather than create a new corridor, they have utilized something that's already there. But again, we're reviewing whether their layout meets design requirements as specified in that permit.
It does do that?
It does. They meet their 50-foot setbacks and exceed them in a lot of cases.
Didn't we also talk about landscape in that particular parcel?
We got an exhibit for that. Pretty much all their street frontages. There's a lot of pages here.
Did we determine how they were going to get water to do that? Did you determine something on watering the trees and plants that they put in?
We haven't determined how they're going to do it, and we are not going to. But they have to put drip irrigation in to feed those as specified by the permit.
Even if
It's up to them to figure it out, but it is conditional upon operation. It's a requirement.
I mean, I just don't want to see them plant the trees that die 2 weeks later because nobody put water to them.
Agreed.
And if we're trying to build this for long term, I assume this lasts more than a week.
Yes, no, we are complying with the conditions put in the permit to make sure we have water during construction as well as the drip irrigation for all the perimeter landscaping.
Because we've had other plants where the trees have all died.
Oh, yeah. So all their street frontages along Selma and 11 Mile, where they butt up to it, will have landscaping. It's kind of shown in green here, a little hard to see, but this is basically the layout using city-approved plants. I think they're going to utilize some existing vegetation that's out there where they can, because there are some pretty good-sized mesquite trees and other brush in the area. So they'll salvage as much as they can outside of the panel areas and access roads.
Okay. That's my questions.
Any other questions?
I got one more thing. There was, Kim, was there some concern from some of the residents in this area that this was going to border, where they wanted to have block walls instead of chain link fence, and there was some, wasn't there some considerations that we were talking about during the conditional use permitting?
I think that's.
Commissioner Metcalf, we have, all those things have come up, but not with this
Okay.
one.
Okay.
You guys have seen a lot of these,
Yes, we have.
so,
Sorry.
and they go in varying degrees. There was some people who came out for the conditional use permit that were owned land down here that had some concerns. They again received the required mailing for this hearing, as with the conditional use permit. I haven't received any phone calls, but there are a lot of people out there tonight. Maybe this is a public hearing, so we might hear from some of them.
I was wondering which one of these was the lucky ticket number.
Somebody's gonna get it.
There's only 2 houses immediately adjacent to the property on the western side, north of Selma, and then south on Valerian, south of Selma.
What about the houses there on the north side?
They're, I guess, kind of adjacent, but there's a canal, a large canal between them. Between the canal and the minimum 50-foot setback, they're probably 150 feet from the closest panel.
And I thought we had quite a few people show up from that community across the canal.
Yeah, we did.
There's significant buffering, natural buffering along those canals that we went out and looked at to make sure we addressed their concerns, and the buffers were quite significant.
There are some big trees along that canal. The canal itself has a bank on it. I won't say it's impossible to see the panels over, but it'd be hard to.
No more questions from me.
Question?
I have a question, just a question, real quick. You know, a question that oftentimes comes up. We know that the life of a project like this is 20 to 25 years or more. And at the end of that life, we think that over that period of time, this land may be much more valuable for other type of land use, whether that be a neighborhood, a residential neighborhood, or some other type of use that might even be a higher and better use than what you're proposing. This is a good interim use, perhaps, of the land, much like agricultural has been over the years. How difficult is it, and what would be at the end of the life of this, how difficult is it to remove the infrastructure that's in the ground to make it readily available for future development?
It's actually quite easy, and I think that's one of the benefits from having this as a temporary land use is, you know, we basically go out there and we install steel piles that are pounded into the ground, and then a handful of concrete pads for the inverters. And so basically at the end of the life of the project, we come in, pull out the piles, break up that concrete, and the land is left all but, you know, exactly as we left it.
And the material that you're pulling back out of the ground has a recyclable or a resale value of some sort, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about battery storage?
That is not scheduled or planned for this particular project. Usually those are developed and added to the project at request of the utilities. This project this PPA did not have that, but that is something that we are seeing more often than not. Most of the PPAs and all the utilities that we're working with are nowadays adding battery storage to these projects, but this one in particular does not have it.
Nothing in our conditional use permit approval prevented the future addition of batteries if necessary or if desired on this property.
Any further questions? No? Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
I'd like to open it to the public at this time. If you'd like to speak on the matter, please come to the podium. State your name, your address, for the record, please.
Good evening, Tom Bagnall, P.O. Box 2084, Coolidge, Arizona, 85128. I live at 67 North Sunshine Boulevard, Casa Grande, Arizona, 85194. When I just got a quick question regarding the battery facility. When you say that it's not scheduled this time, but it is allowed under the conditional use permit, so they can just come to the city and then you guys just say, okay, go ahead, or, because my concern is I'm already living in the vicinity of the bomb that NextEra has out there. And I've tried to talk to the folks out there about what happens if it catches fire, like the one up in Phoenix did. And they told me that they have this proprietary technology where theirs won't catch fire. I think that's a bunch of crap. So, I mean, let's be real about this. It's been proven that they can catch fire. And my concern is I don't want them building another one out there as close to my property as I've got right now. And even when I asked NextEra's folks, I said, hey, what about if there is an emergency out there, even though it's not going to happen, according to them? What happens if it does? What's the emergency plan? Well, we can't tell you that. We're going to have to go to legal. That was back when soon after that explosion up in Peoria. Still haven't heard back from the folks at NextEra.
If I can, Mr. Bagnall, I appreciate your concern. You know, we're concerned about batteries and how they might impact our first responders, as did the battery explosion up in the valley. And I know there's been a lot of research, not only by the utility companies looking at those batteries and the safety of those battery components, but also the people that manufacture those, the utility companies, the solar companies. Many people are researching why that happened. You know, it's an unfortunate incident. I don't think it's happening regularly. I'm not sure what the cause of that incident was. Don't know that it presented any immediate threat to anybody other than the firefighters that were going up immediately adjacent to the structure. You say a bomb or an explosion that would take out a neighborhood. I've not heard of anything that something like that might happen with a battery storage. Those batteries up there were, I think, were in a container of some sort. You know, I know that there's a lot of people looking at that and the safety of those batteries to avoid any kind of an impact. But right now they're saying there are no batteries. I'm just saying that in our conditional use permit approval previously, nothing said that they couldn't have batteries. Oftentimes, as has been mentioned, a battery pack is a component of a project like this. Batteries are advancing daily. The safety of the batteries, I'm sure, are advancing daily. The efficiency of batteries are advancing daily. And I would expect that someday you may see battery packs here. Obviously, if that were the case, they'd have to get permits to put the batteries on this property. And, you know, and all uniform fire code or international fire code requirements would have to be satisfied. Those code requirements typically have safeguards on separation distance if there is a potential for a hazard to a neighboring property. So all that would be looked at, sir.
Okay. But so they would not have to come back in a public forum in order to do that?
Correct.
Thank you.
But they would have to get permission from the city of Coolidge to
Permits.
do that.
Yes.
And is there anything in our permits that has a distance from other points?
International Fire
That's
Code.
international fire code, international building codes. So those
Electric code also.
all of those codes would apply to anybody that wanted to put batteries on this property. That's correct.
Yeah, we just clarified we can actually use the 2017 National Electric Code. It has specific electrical regulations on it for these solar facilities, and our consultant Stantec will be utilizing 2017 NEC, which is the one that covers all these newer products. So these codes are evolving as some of these come out, as the city manager mentioned. The 2017 NEC is a version that addresses a lot of solar issues, which we're allowed through the way our zoning or our building codes are written to go to the newest available technology and codes to apply to these. So that'll apply to the batteries as well. From the building code standpoint.
Okay, you're telling me that, let's say they don't put batteries in for 5 years.
Mhm.
And let's say that in 2022, we have a new electrical code.
Mhm.
Will they follow the new code or the one when they started the project?
The new code.
The new one.
So they will have to use whatever the current code is at the time they want to install the batteries. It doesn't matter that they started this project 5 years, 10 years, 20 years earlier. The code that's currently on the books is the one they have to comply to.
Right, and we're committed to using the newest, best available code to keep the public safe, which is what the codes are for. So.
That's the one the fire chief will inspect too as well.
Yes, but I don't know whether we have the personnel needed that knows what those are and what those our limitations are.
We do have the personnel. We use Stantec Consulting along with we send our building official to training, Dennis. But for the industrial sites, we use Stantec, one of the largest consultants, and they have engineers, they have inspectors. We use all those services. The city's under contract with them. They will be doing the inspections on these facilities and the plan review on them. Okay. So we do have just so you're aware.
And to also make it perfectly clear, not every city has adopted the most current code. Oftentimes, cities are a few years behind the current code. Some cities wait 6 years to adopt it. They come out every 3 years, I believe. And sometimes they'll skip a code year because of the expense in adopting those codes. It doesn't mean that a company like this couldn't come in and say, we want to use the most current code because it addresses utility scale solar projects and batteries where the old code didn't. And we would allow them to use the new codes under a provision in our current code that says they can use alternative means and methods to build those types of facilities, which would mean looking at the newer code for those facilities.
You just say they don't necessarily have to use it, but they can ask to use it?
What I'm saying is whatever code we've adopted is the one they're required to follow, okay, which is what we talked about a while ago.
We don't adopt
if we haven't adopted the most current code, I want to make sure that we don't confuse you. We don't always adopt the most current code because of the cost of adopting these codes. We may be a few code cycles behind, but that doesn't preclude someone from using the more current code. We'll let them use the more current code if it addresses a battery situation, for instance, that may not be real clear under our current adopted code.
It seems like codes the newer codes are more restrictive than the older codes were from everything I've dealt with and seen. So how long does it take us to decide when we are going to adopt a code so that we are using the most current code? We could wait as long as we want to?
But, there's many people that have, they're under older codes. That's really a council decision. You're right. Some codes are more restrictive than what the community wants to adopt. They can be very restrictive. There are some communities that adopt a code that requires residential sprinklers in every household. And that can be very expensive to the homeowners or people that are buying houses in an area. And councils can elect not to adopt that provision of the code to avoid the cost to the people in the community. Yeah, it's not uncommon for a city to be a few code cycles behind.
And a city can choose what parts of the code they want to have followed?
They can do amendments to whatever code. Yeah, they can do amendments to the code to meet the local requirements. Some cities adopt a code, for instance, many codes. One of the biggest issues that I deal with is when is it required to sprinkler a building? Well, the building code specifies a certain square footage must be, when you reach a certain square footage, you have to sprinkler. Some cities require you to sprinkler at a much lower threshold. It might be that the threshold is 8,000 square feet. Some cities say sprinklered if it's 5,000 square feet. They can adopt that kind of an amendment. When it comes to sprinklers in our city, we generally follow what the code requires, and we're not more restrictive than the code.
Okay.
Any further questions? I'd like to open it to the public. I guess we heard from Mr. Bagnall. Thank you, sir. Like to entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Cool PZ 19-08-25.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Next amendment, or next on the agenda, Cool PZ 19-08-26, a major site plan application submitted by Saint Solar for a 1,167-acre solar farm located east of State Route 87 between Steel Road and Selma Highway in the Coolidge, Arizona, parcel numbers 401-21-057C, 0590, 060A, 060B, 401-14-001D, 002A, 004B, 401-86-003A, 0040, and 0060. Mr. Lopez.
Mr. Chair, Commission members, again, we have a different submittal from Saint Solar LLC for 1,167 acres that you described the location of. So this property, part of it was annexed into the city in 2015, and the other area, the newest area, was annexed in 2018. The conditional use permit for this property was issued on August 8th, 2018 by Resolution 18-02. This, up on the screen, you'll see the general site. The big U-shaped portion up there is the Goldman Dairy. It's not in this portion of it, and but I believe the dairy is dormant at this point. I haven't seen. I think they were using it for some cattle feeding, but not for a dairy, as far as I know. Now they may be here in the audience and could let us know that. But I know we've worked. I don't believe we've had comments at this point, and we may have some in the audience for anything surrounding this. And I believe the representatives from Saint Solar are here. So. That's all I have.
Okay. I'd like to hear from you, Saint Solar.
Good evening, guys. My name is Warda Abbasi, and
Put the microphone down a little
There you
bit.
go.
can you hear me now?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Warda Abbasi. I'm the developer for Saint Solar. I'm here on behalf of NextEra Energy Resources. NextEra Energy Resources is owned by NextEra Energy, based out of Juno Beach, Florida. We are American-owned and operated. We have investments in about 32 states. We have 2 gigawatts of solar, universal scale solar installed in about 16 states, and we expect to build about 2.5 gigawatts more from 2019 to 2020. Saint Solar is, as you indicated, located on Highway 87 and Steel Road. It's located on 1,027 acres of property. The point of interconnection is a 230 kV Pinal Central to Randolph line. It's owned by SRP. SRP plans on constructing an on-site switchyard for our project. We expect to begin construction sometime in January of 2020. The project is expected to come online on 12/31 December 31st, 2020. I have the entire team here with me. We have the engineering folks, Greg Doolin, Colm O'Reilly. I have our environmental manager, Eric Hoster, and we have the construction team who will be building the Saint Solar project. Moss Construction, we have Carl Shepard, we have Edwin Perkins, and we have the NextEra Energy Resources Construction Manager, David Farkas, here to answer any of your questions and concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay there. We have questions. Or at least I do. There's a angular shape that goes down through here and goes down. Is that something What is that supposed to be? This looks like a road that comes down through the center of the property.
There by the canal.
Yes, that's a Pinal County right-of-way for a future highway. It's called North-South Freeway that's been accepted out of our acreage. It's owned by the Pinal County.
For the for future north-south freeway.
Yeah, she mentioned.
I thought there were some houses right in that area. I'm using my map on my phone to see a satellite picture that I can't see from what you guys have. Is that houses that are off of Early Road there? In that little angular shaped little box? It looks like it's going to be surrounded kind of by...
Early in 87.
Yeah, it is...
Commissioners, yes, there are some houses there. It look like they're older farmhouses. They got notice of the conditional use. This is, of course, the site plan, so the buffering would be an issue there. And any resident nearby, I think there's a piece that they were working with up off Steel Road also. There's a house up there that they were notified, and I know they've been talking to Nextera, I believe, about any buffering issues.
I just want to make sure that just because they were notified, they may not have understood what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Were they given a packet similar to what we have so they could see what was going to surround their house? Because to me, it looks like they're going to be pretty much surrounded. I don't even know how they're going to get access in and out because it looks like it's going to be fenced in every direction around them.
No, I believe they have access down the canal and some of the other roads there.
Canal's not legal access.
Their legal access will not be restricted as a result of this project. We can't, and they can't, the applicant cannot restrict legal access to a property. Again, this did go to P&Z, Planning and Zoning Commission. The use was decided when the conditional use permit was approved. So really, it's really a site plan issue. Again, Tim had to leave on an emergency, but you know, the conditions that were spelled out at the conditional use permit with regard to right-of-way dedications and landscaping along the frontages have all been addressed. There's one area. One thing that I think they would like to do here, that we've agreed to as a staff and feel that it's probably even a better way to screen, is that they would like to use an oleander screen that's going to be drip irrigated on this property, much like a lot of your cotton gins do around here. They're a very effective method of screening. Once the oleanders grow up, and especially the way they're proposing them to do them. Hope I went the wrong way on this one, sorry. I think you can see in this exhibit here, the oleanders that are in the little color photograph, they're going to stagger those back and forth. That would make a tremendous screen. So everywhere we asked them to screen this facility from the rights of way, and they've indicated this type of planting, which would be drip irrigated as well.
So
Without the drip irrigation, they just aren't going to survive.
So how are you going to transmit the power from your generation facility? Where are you transmitting it to? The same place that the other group was going to?
So we have a 230 kV line that's running, the SRP2.
You'll need to stand on the mic. I can't hear.
There's a 230 kV SRP line that's going on our property. It starts at Pinal Central, it goes all the way north to Randolph. So we are connecting through a switchyard, on-site switchyard on that line.
Okay, and are you putting batteries?
No, we are not. This is solar only.
Transformers. Where's the connection point going to be?
It's going to be on the extreme west side. It's the bottom, that corner, that white spot off of 85.
One that says something about
Is it right there?
Barley Road?
Okay, so everything.
That red dot?
It's a little north and a little, it's that box, that shaded box. Go a little north.
And go east. So it follows the green and down and around?
It's that shaded box.
Ah, Buck.
That's connection point.
Yes.
Right there?
Okay. Now, everything's going to be underground to that point, and that's where the power line's at now. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Power line goes through there already.
Yes.
Okay. And then everything's underground coming to that point, and then it ties in to the transformers and into the power line.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, only reason I'm asking is, even though that dairy is not being used as a dairy right now, doesn't say that it's not going to come back as a dairy someday. And the people that live there deserve the right to not have big power lines sticking up all over their, around next to them. They need to, they've got some considerations too, so I don't know whether we're gonna, is it block walls around the dairy?
No, no, they're not. They'll have landscaping, but there's already some really big power lines coming through. The SunZia's coming through here too, so that whole area is just really, it's got power lines all over it already coming through. That's what made it difficult with this
I know.
site.
I know.
But yeah, there's no screening requirements from the. I mean, they'll have landscaping around it and all that, but I don't know if the use right now is if the cows are there, whether you require that. Maybe the plants would probably be better.
I know that the man sitting here that's going to tell us about whether it's going to interrupt his life or not.
Mm-hmm.
If I might, again, working with the prior owner, the city entered into a development agreement with Jakob Anderson and the Pinal Land Holdings Group. This property, because of the constraints with the irrigation canals and the major 500 kV overhead power lines, railroad, a number of other issues, even the feedlot, can be a deterrent to some people wanting to develop around the feedlot. This made actually a pretty good use, an interim, kind of an interim use.
Oh, yeah.
And the other thing beautiful about this property is that north-south freeway corridor will be a freeway someday.
Yep.
If we ever want to go up to, or get out of the Phoenix metro area and head south, this has better be there. Otherwise, that's going to be a parking lot for the most time.
Yeah.
So the future for this property and the potential for economic development along that freeway is going to be far greater than the solar someday. And so I think that this is, again, one of those land use decisions that's a great interim use. Taking cotton, which is, having more and more difficult time these days with a lack of water, putting in a product that basically harvests the sun and make a good land use for this area for a period of time.
No, and I'm not arguing that
Right.
point. That's not
Right.
the point I was getting at. The point I was getting at is the dairy needs to be considered in all that we're doing here, and I did want power lines, because the way it looks, they're sitting right in the middle of that horseshoe, and power lines going in front and down the sides and everywhere else, and they're not. You've already got one going across the back there over to where the transformer station is going to be. Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Are any of the Goldmans here tonight?
Yep, they're right there.
I'd like to hear from them before I say anything more. You want to open it up to the public? please?
Absolutely. We'll open it to the public.
We flipped the coin and Grandpa got the heads. Jim Goldman, Goldman Dairy, which has been discussed up there. A brief history. Moved here 33 years ago. We had some people didn't like the idea of a dairy up there, smells and all that kind of thing. We had a right to our property, correct? These folks have a right to their property, what they want to do, and I would defend that. But I think I'd like to make a reasonable request. I did it before. Before you agree to the conceptual plan of actually how it's going to be in detail, if you strongly consider, I can't point it out, but up there at the northwest corner are my residences. They're not cheap houses by any means. This is going to evaluate my property. But I realize I can't quite tell you whole. Maybe. But I'm asking, right up on that point there, where houses
Right
are,
there? No, it's over there.
before you approve that, that you make a 200-foot setback at least from the houses,
Oh, up here.
right there.
Yeah, right there.
The rest of the area, I could care less, doesn't matter, as long as it's low voltage power. It won't affect cows. If it's high voltage, you're going to get a lawsuit if you not want to get into it. That's been proven. I think you know that. So all we're saying is, look, let's be reasonable here as neighbors. Get along. Give me my 200-foot setback. You can pay me. Do everybody want to, but not having those things right next to my house. That's what I'm at. All right. You don't think that's so? Considering the fact they wouldn't be in business, if it wasn't for our subsidy off our tax money, correct? Which is something I'm strongly opposed to, but that's another issue. But all I'm saying is, please, before you okay the final site plan in detail, you intercede and say, wait a minute, we will do this, but you'll give Goldman's a 200-foot right-of-way, or setback on their property. At least for the first eighth of a mile, where the residents are. That's all we're asking.
Eighth of a mile?
Mr. Goldman, don't leave, I have questions for you. I remember when you came to town, I was here.
What's that?
He's got some questions for
I
you.
got some questions for you, I was here when you came.
You got to speak up pretty loud, because the old man's getting low,
Yeah,
foreign
I got
hearing.
hearing aids too, so I understand. Okay, how far would you say, I think your house is the first house, as I remember.
What about it?
Your house is the first house. It's
My
the
house is in the
closest to
corner, right there on
That's
the
right.
man-made hill.
How far are you from the corner of your property? Are you 100 feet? Are you?
At 100 and some feet, yeah.
Okay, so what, are you asking them to be 100 feet from your from your house, or 100 feet, or 200 feet from your?
From their property line.
From
At least
their
100,
property line.
150, 200-foot setback. That's all I'm asking for.
Okay, well, I'm trying to determine, are you asking for, from the house or from the property line? You're asking for 200 feet back from the property, your property line, not your house. So you really
Right.
want a 300.
From the
foot-
property line, correct.
You want 300 feet from the house, is what you're
Right.
looking for. Okay.
This isn't the end of it, folks. They're proposing on the north side to put another solar reflector field. We're going to be an island out in the middle. Or more correctly, we're going to hopefully be a vibrant oasis in the middle of a high-tech steel and glass desert. That's the way I look at it. But that's my personal view. But again, they have a right to do it with their property if they want to. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name's Nathan Goldman, and I live right next door, 5815 East Steel Road. I don't, like I said, I don't notice any setbacks on the site plan here or any kind of landscaping at all that is drawn up right now. As he stated, that obviously we would like the precedent set because there's going to probably be solars across the north side of the Steel Road as well. The other thing is that is there any requirements at all that when we came to this before, when you were drawing this up, you said we didn't need to discuss that because it's all going to be talked about at the site plan hearing. Well, I haven't heard anybody talk about it yet, and that is to deal with the weed issues. With like as you can see, what happens down 287 on the current one. There's weeds growing, 3 feet tall there, and they don't do anything about it. They've done a half-butt job, and then landscaping died, and it's just eyesore to look at. I hear that the requirement for drip irrigation for oleanders, but oleanders don't do well. It's just a little bit of drip irrigation. So that looks great at a cotton gin. I know I work at a cotton gin, but that takes a lot more irrigation than just drip irrigation to be able to grow those like that you see around all the cotton gins. Those are done because they're irrigated. And a little drip irrigation is not going to grow an oleander wall like they're showing in the picture. That's unrealistic. And then the other thing is, well, I guess the same thing is we'd like to set a precedent on this property because we're going to be going forward in the future as the other one. So I don't see any landscaping or setbacks anywhere around besides the house. I'd love setbacks on the rest of the dairy too as well. Like we said, we're already going to be taking a significant hit in our land value. I realize it's a dairy farm now, but I hope it not to be always in the future. If we ever want to sell it, if we ever want to do something else with it, it's going to be an issue, especially as we're sitting in an aisle in the middle of this thing.
Currently, as I understand it, we're giving them, it's a 50-foot setback from the property line. Is that correct?
Well, I'd like to look, maybe we'd have the applicant come up here and address the site plan so that they can better describe. As I'm looking at the site plan in the packet, the house is up there closer, your house, Mr. Goldman, is up there closer to Steel Road. Is that correct?
Right, it's right on Steel Road.
Right on Steel Road. Not very far off of Steel Road, but right up there next to the road, correct? It looks to me like on the site plan they don't have any solar panels in that little blank area there that would be immediately to the west of you. I just don't see any solar panels there in that area that would be immediately west of your property line. And so, so you'd have a few hundred feet there. And then you'd have a retention basin. I think these diagonal crosshatched areas on the map are retention basin, stormwater retention. So really along Steel Road, that whole frontage, there really are no solar panels. You have retention basins and you have a big area that's there's no panels immediately west of your property line. Now, as far as the screening around the rest of the property, I don't think I've seen any plans that illustrate any kind of vegetation around the border of your property. We'd have to have them address that. I know that detail came up, that question came up with the conditional use permit during the process. I know that was a concern. We'd have to have them address that for you. As far as the drip irrigation, I'm not a farmer. I didn't realize that they had like open canals or something to flood irrigate those, but if they do, they have to have a sufficient irrigation system to maintain a healthy landscape screen. And they've worked with a landscape architect to design a set of landscape plans. And I hear laughter because the other situation in Pinal County, they built a berm that has no drip irrigation on it whatsoever, and so they're having a hard time maintaining the existing trees out there on Florence Boulevard, which is not surprising. I think we talked to them about the need for drip irrigation there whenever they were proposing that. So we are stipulating that they put in some kind of a drip irrigation system to maintain a healthy screen. And if it is not maintained in a healthy manner, they're in violation of the conditional use permit. That'd be a zoning violation, and we could talk to them about that violation.
Same with the weeds. If they're not maintaining the weeds, we've learned from what we've seen over on the other road. So we've made it a fact whether they put a sterilant down, to keep those weeds from coming up. Different ideas like that, but they have to maintain it. And as we have in our zoning code, we have in our city code also. We go around town and we send notices out, and then we fine people if they don't chop down the weeds because they're a fire hazard. So.
But let me just say this: we had a weed problem this year like you wouldn't believe. Everybody did. I mean, even in town today, we have vacant lots that are covered with weeds, and we go out and try to address that problem and encourage property owners to take care of that because of the safety hazard that's involved with dry weed and fires.
I understand weeds growing, It's a fact of you drive by there every day and they don't do anything about them.
Yeah.
So they've just been left there. That's a problem.
But I have noticed, because I drive by it every day out there, and I have noticed some weed abatement. It's not perfect, but I have noticed, in fact, the weeds on that side of the street are actually a little better than the weeds on the other side of the street.
But I'd like to see, they talked about a oleander screening, whatever, but I see nothing in the site plan that shows where that actually is going to take place.
I would like to address the weed issue at Pinal Central Energy Center. I agree that I would like to address the weed issue at Pinal Central Energy Center. I agree that we did not take care of that property, but we have already dedicated $100,000 to landscaping and maintenance of that property. We're working actively on it and on weed abatement and maintaining the landscape, and we plan on doing similar at St. Solar. We have a bunch of wells on site. We have a bunch of canals. We plan on retiring our irrigation rights to non-irrigation use to use the water for this site, for the maintenance of the site. We plan on installing drip irrigation, so we plan on maintaining this landscape.
Okay, I have a couple questions that you may have one of your people answer. He said that we have drainage basins that are the cross-marked areas on the site. There's one on the north side, and then there's a big vacant white spot next to that. What's going to be in that white vacant spot? It's right next to the Goldman's property, and it's a nice empty spot that doesn't show anything. What's going to be there?
So for the construction of the project, that's going to be a temporary laydown yard. For permanent, there's nothing proposed in that area.
Well, is there any reason why you couldn't move the drainage basin to that area and make the laydown yard on the west side rather than on the east side of that property?
Originally, the drainage basin location was picked for that spot because the drainage patterns for this area actually flow towards that railroad. We can make that skinnier and go all the way along the top and potentially put lay down between the two. So that it was originally picked there because of the drainage for the site.
Well, you're going to have to regrade. Regrading farmland's not a big deal to laser level that and change that deal. I mean, it's done all the time around here. We wouldn't have flood irrigation without it. So what I'm saying is if you could make the drainage basins next to the Goldman property and adjust your site west, that would give them the amount of protection that they are asking for without changing the amount of collectors that you have. And it would make the Goldmans much happier to have something that you're never going to be able to build on because it's a drainage basin that's required for the site, and you've got one going down the west side of that same box. And if it was, like I said, if everything was moved west and made that would give them a lot more space. Is that not possible and realistic to do at a reasonable cost?
Show it all.
I mean, they're both going to cost money. I don't see where there's going to be a lot of difference.
Grade what they need.
How wide is that blank area and the drainage? What's the distance? Is it 200 feet or 500 feet or?
Oh, no, it's not even 100. It is.
It needs to go a little bit more than that then.
My name's Colin O'Reilly. I'm the project engineer for NextEra. We could potentially look into doing that, shifting those two spots, the crosshatch area that's just east of the railroad there, with the part that's just west of the Goldman's Dairy. We can look into that and try to make that happen.
I mean, that would make the Goldman family a lot more acceptable of the fact that they're going to have this plant around them and on at least 3 sides and probably 4 eventually. And the more you could give them, and since you've got it, I don't see any reason not to do it.
Well, to be clear, that area right now is just designated to be used for the construction of the project. Once we're done constructing, it's going to be vacant.
And you're going to be in construction for 2 years?
Just 1 year.
1 year. So for 1 year, they're going to have that construction going on 100 feet from their house, and that's going to be the construction yard.
It's going to be the laydown yard, but we
will
shift it. We can work on that.
Okay.
Now, is there going to be any barrier going to the south and then back across the backside and up on the east side of their house or their area? Is there any oleanders? Is there any
Trees, plants,
trees,
something?
fences?
Right now, there is not, because that's not required in the CUP, but we're here to listen.
Okay, because we want it there.
There's currently plants there based on whatever this satellite is that I'm looking at. There is plants going down on the Goldman's property. There's plants there, and so it would be, something that could be added in, I would think. But it's just a matter of, I'd like to give them as much space as you can without detrimentally affecting your facility. I think that the two of you could work that out and make it so it works for you and you don't lose any generation space and they don't have somebody right next to it, because having the drainage basin next to the railroad tracks or to the west, there's nobody to the west. You're not trying to get away from anybody.
Yeah, we'll work this out with them.
I'm sorry?
We'll work this out with them.
Okay.
And he is correct. With the conditional use permit, we didn't illustrate in our conditional use permit a buffer there or landscape buffer, but it was a absolute point of discussion in the meeting or during the meeting that should be addressed.
And it would be addressed
At this meeting.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it is being addressed at this meeting.
Correct. Correct.
At this time.
Correct.
So, listen up back there, guys. There's going to be a barrier along there, and there's going to be a buffer.
How do we get that added in so that we know that that's going to happen? What do we have to do as a committee here to be sure that they understand that that's our expectation and that's what we're agreeing to, is those changes are going to happen? What do we have to do?
I think as part of your motion, if you're going to approve the site plan this evening, you make a motion and stipulate that the applicant and the Goldmans come up with an acceptable buffer that, will buffer or screen this facility from the Goldman Dairy property. Now, without having, I've not walked entirely around the Goldman property. There may be areas that don't need to be buffered. There may be, I think when we talked about it in the meeting, a dairy today, maybe something else tomorrow, but
the Goldman's family homes for years have been there, and they have built beautiful homes.
They have built beautiful homes, but their homes only occupy a very small portion of that property.
That's the only part we're trying to
And
block.
so if we want to buffer, I'm sure they'd be willing to buffer extensive buffering next to their home. But if you're talking about buffering all the way around the dairy, you're talking 3/4 of a mile.
I'm not talking about that.
I want to make sure that that's clear for everybody tonight.
Well, I'm talking about his house.
Okay.
Both of them, the family's house.
I want to make sure.
Mr. Goldman has some. He mentioned about his house, and Mr. Goldman, you're welcome to go back up and clarify.
We're not proposing all the way around the area.
Okay.
Right.
Just right west of the house,
Where the house is, yeah.
1/8 of a mile.
Yeah, so it's.
And
What is
Right.
the dimensions of this drainage area as far as from north to south? How wide is that supposed to be? Anybody know?
If you look at the exhibit that you have in front of you, the railroad right-of-way is 125 feet wide. So if you look at the scale of the right-of-way for the railroad and you compare it to the width of that, you're probably around 200 feet or more.
Okay, so, and if he had a drainage basin directly to the east that's 200 some feet wide, it would be more than enough distance away from what he's asking. Okay?
Plenty of buffer there.
Yeah,
Separation.
I'm concerned with giving the Goldmans the right to tell them how big a facility they can build or how far. That's what you said is what our addendum. I don't like that.
Well, let's just specify that the retention, the buffering be put adjacent to their residential property, the residential portion of the Golden site.
The drainage area will be put adjacent to their residential property. That'll be the closest thing to their houses will be the drainage area that's going to be left.
Let me, if I may, just a minute, and just for purposes of conversation and discussion, we've heard engineering people say that the drainage flows to the northwest. So what they've shown on their engineering plan is probably the best location for drainage. If I were a property owner, I'm not so sure that I'd rather have flat ground next to my property versus a large drainage basin. I think the drainage basin could be more of a nuisance than undisturbed property. As long as I've got that landscape buffer there, I think personally, I would, as if I had a neighbor next door to me, I would rather it not be a big ditch or a big drainage way.
Well, a hole that's 200 feet wide, and I don't know if it's going to be 10 feet deep or what it's going to be, or stuff.
It won't be very deep.
It won't be very deep.
It won't be very deep.
But if it's the drainage basin, there's no way anyone can change their mind and build on it later.
Well, maybe they change the site plan and show that whole area as a drainage basin. Maybe they only need half of it for drainage. But maybe show the whole thing as drainage basin.
Make it drainage after the fact that they get the place built.
Mm-hmm.
And they can extend it the whole length. I don't know, but I want to be sure that we have protected that to the best of our ability.
Correct.
We'd be perfectly fine with a flat area out there which has drainage ditch. The only concern is that they go back and build on it later or something else, more solar, whatever.
And that's why I say maybe
that's
we.
where Ken was going kind of with that too.
Yeah, and
You're not going to cover up a drainage area.
Correct.
And build on it.
Yes.
You can if that please the ground that they're using for their building site, or their laydown, whatever laydown means. I guess it means where you store materials.
Yeah.
Could you tell me, because I'm not smart about this.
So in the process of building a solar farm, we bring in several trailers worth of, hundreds of trailers worth of steel piles, steel tracker materials, the things that you're going to build the trackers with. In addition, there's going to be pallets and pallets of modules. So we have to, during the building, you can't just put it exactly where you want it right away, right? So we have to lay it down someplace in the interim. So that's the purpose of a lay down yard. We also typically have like 2 office trailers or so in that area for the project management during construction.
Okay. But then, after the project's finished, 2021, what's going to happen to that area?
It's all gone. We
Guarantee that,
Yes, sir.
in writing,
Yes, sir.
never to be built on.
I don't want to build in a drainage pond. So.
Well, I think that's what we maybe do. Maybe we just have them modify the site plan in that area where it just shows blank. Have them extend that cross-hatched area on over to that blank area, just to show that area, that whole area is for stormwater retention. Now, you may not need it all. Some of that's going to be flat. But if we designate it on the site plan that it's all for future drainage and stormwater, it won't be for solar in the future.
Yeah.
And it could be less deep, too. I mean, if they were planning on doing it 5 feet deep,
Well,
it'd only have to be 3.
Yeah, but I've heard him say that, that when the owners say they might rather have flat ground next to them rather than a depression.
Right. I'm just trying to keep the noise level and the construction possibilities down.
As long as the weeds are kept down,
As
yes.
long as it don't become a weed field. You got that one right.
That's what you have a tractor for. Just have to figure out how to get it in the yard legally. Don't want to see the backhoe go through the fence. Okay, I'll quit asking questions. I appreciate you answering my questions. Thomas?
Me again.
I'm glad.
First off, I want to say, Goldman's, I feel for you. I mean, I dealt for 2 years with these folks, and the minute they found out that I was against it, they just basically stopped talking to me. And I want to thank you folks for making them deal with the Goldmans and address these issues with them. And again, the whole landscaping thing that you're talking about here, I mean, it's been a joke since they put in that Pinal Central. They have not taken care of it. The only reason why they started taking care of it is because at the, I believe it was the May P&Z meeting, when this was discussed regarding the other solar projects that may come in to the west of my home on Sunshine and 287, that everybody that got up, they had a comment about how NextEra and Pinal Central did not take care of that property. They did a poor job landscaping to start with. and they haven't done anything to improve it. We asked at the time that they put up a block wall. They didn't put up a block wall. They said, we aren't required to. We don't have to. It doesn't. We're already meeting county code. So I mean, it's pretty bad. The glare that comes off those solar panels at different times, and I'll even give you a direct quote from Sammy Kaywood. Kaywood Farms stated, NextEra promised the moon, block walls, great aesthetics, and did not follow through on any of the promises. And it says, Ms. Kaywood further stated that NextEra site produces a constant hum. You guys ready for that? So, I don't know what you can do. I mean, I know there's nothing that you can do about the Pinal Central site because that's under the county's jurisdiction. But Mr. Miller, you said that if they don't keep the weeds clean and everything, they're in violation of the conditional use permit. So I guess they would be in violation of the county's conditional use permit or the zoning that they've got on it. I don't know. But the county's not enforcing it. They're letting them go ahead and get away with it. And I mean, I know that I've got weeds on my property too, right now. But that's me. I have to go out there and clear that. I'm not a $1 billion Fortune 200 company like they like to tell everybody. They have the ability to get that mess cleaned up. They just don't want to. So, and the last thing I just want to throw out there is, I'm just wondering if you should even be voting on this tonight, because on the agenda, it has incorrect parcel numbers on there for 3 of the parcels. It's referred to as 401-14-001D, 2A, and 4B, and I believe that should be 401-40. So I don't know if you have a proper noticing or not. So anyway, thank you.
As far as the noticing, obviously notices are sent or mailed to all property owners within this requisite distance of this property. There may be, I haven't looked at the parcel numbers, not questioning you. You're probably right. Maybe it's a typo. I don't know. But we mail notices to all property owners.
Hi, my name is Penny Bagnall. I live at 67 North Sunshine. My dear friend Goldman's, you have no idea what you're in for. And I've shared with you a lot of things. It's what they don't tell you that you need to be very, very concerned about. They're deflecting with landscaping. Of course, that's what we're all very worried about. What's my home going to look like? What's my home? That's the least of your worries. EMI, electromagnetic interference. Google it, akin to solar. I had my worst fears imagined. I stood here and I said, what am I going to do if I can't call 911 for my mother? Guess what? It happened. It is a fact. They're going to lie to you over and over again. Please protect your citizens. Back this as far away from people as possible. It's too late for me. And during their construction process, they literally parked hundreds of trucks daily on that road in the middle of the night. No lights on, no highway patrol, nothing protecting our citizens because they couldn't give them the right address to their lay-down area. The amount of dirt that these people, they don't care. You guys are going to have to watch these people constantly. Are you ready to be fining them constantly? This is what's going to happen with these people. They got to keep dust under control. Okay, county tells them you got to get 3 water trucks out there. Guess what? They have 1. We're calling highway patrol. We're calling the county. We're calling air quality. This is what your life is going to be like. Because they can say, oh, we'll listen to you. They're going to do as they doggone well please. Because because they've got the money to do it. Back this off of these people. Thank you.
I have one other question. On the rest of the property going around, is that a 50-foot setback as well?
Yes.
Okay.
It's required from the property line.
Okay, that's what I figured, but I just want to clarify.
Yeah.
Good evening. I'm Rebecca Hilder. I live at 2044 South Don Carlos, number 12 in Mesa. And I'm a property owner. I'd like to talk about the eastern boundary of the project up near Steel Road, because that's where my property is. And the letter that I got stated that my property is within 300 feet. And so, speaking of buffers and landscaping, that's piqued my interest. I won't be able to reach this high, but when you see that little notch to the east of the dairy, yes.
This part?
Yeah, I think that's a residence, a farm or something. Yeah, that was always there since I bought my property in '06. My brother also has property where I do, these parcels. And there are 2 homes that I know of that are presently that are there that have been built since I purchased my parcel. So there are already 2 homes there, and others, that are pending or just simply haven't been built on, to my knowledge. I haven't been out there in a little while. Anyway, so where that notch is, where that farm is, directly east, probably about midpoint.
Is it up here?
Yeah, right there. Yeah, on the border of the boundary is where my property is. So I know I'm going to be impacted also by that north-south corridor if they do build that, which it sounds like that's the preferred, and I'm going to that public hearing next week about that. And I think that's going to kind of split, if they approve that, it's going to kind of split that square to the east of your property. It actually touches, it looks like, yeah.
This is a...
Right.
Part of yours, it looks
Yeah.
like maybe you're close
This is
to
the
the
north-south here.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
you're further east.
Your property is over here, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, you're further east.
Anyway, I don't know what to expect. Being flanked by the east end of the solar project, what kind of buffer, my property will have and those that share that boundary, and if there is anything planned or guaranteed in terms of landscaping or any kind of protection. And I don't know what direction the glare is going to come off of these things, but it could certainly make my 5 acres undesirable. I feel for you folks because you already know the impact it's having on your property values. So time will tell. With the north-south corridor, could be a good thing. We're hopeful, but I don't know what to expect with this other. Do these panels move, or are they stationary?
They move.
They move with the sun?
Rotate,
Yeah.
follow
They're,
the sun.
I see.
And they're relatively low profile. They're not very tall.
Mm-hmm.
They're not mirrors. So they're not. There's some glare, I suspect. Bagnall's a mentioned glare, but they're not mirrors. And there's a 50-foot setback from the property line to the nearest solar panels, but those are going to be south again. See, there's a little area there's no solar panels designated in the area up there along Steel Road. So your property, if your property is up there along Steel.
Well, it's just south of Steel.
How deep does your property run south of Steel? What's the depth of your property?
South of Steel?
What's the depth of your property off of Steel?
I'm not sure, because there are parcels north of mine along that same boundary. Like I said, mine's at about midpoint, and it's a rectangular 5 acre. It's just a rectangular box that is in line with that boundary.
Where's your access from?
Steel Road.
Do you have an easement that goes to your property, or is it a dedicated public right-of-way, or? Because you don't front on Steel, so do you have an access to your
Correct.
property?
Well, there's 2 roads in. Those of you familiar with the area, this white fence, that white fence along there, there's 2 entry points. The first entry point, coming or going eastbound on Steel Road. If you're eastbound, the first entry point won't take you to my property. It ends in a little cul-de-sac. The second entrance, you have to go down a little ways south and then jog west to come to the cul-de-sac that ends where my property is.
If you look at the county assessor's map, we refer to these as wildcat subdivisions because they just are parceled up. And there's really no dedicated right-of-ways that show up on a parcel map. I'm sure they're all private access easements that she's referring to.
One of the road, these were just lightly graveled roads, and in the time that has passed since 2006, the road to my property is kind of washed out. So, and then there had also been a back entrance, but that's disappeared by now, I think, completely. But off of Steel Road was the access.
Do you have a parcel number? What is your parcel
I do.
number? I'm sorry, Mr. Vice Chair. Maybe I can look and find out.
I think I know which one is hers.
Okay, let's see. The parcel number is 4018601403.
Yeah. Yeah, I see a parcel number 14. Looks like.
Is it adjacent to that open area?
No, it's further south, a little further south.
Looks like it's in this area somewhere.
Yeah. There's a big rectangular section.
Well, the panels will be back 50 feet. It'll be
There'll be a fence there.
and we're showing a fence on the site plan.
And the panel's 50 feet back.
And that's just chain link fence, though.
Although, yeah, we have not required block walls on any of these conditional use permits.
Yeah, and I don't believe there's any houses on that property now, right? Everything up.
Not on
that side.
mine,
Yeah.
but in that little subdivision, yes, there are 2.
Okay, but they're not right up against.
No, they're not right up against that.
So it's
I
right-
see those 2 right there.
Right
kinda-
here.
Yep.
Yeah. The little road.
My property just lays right on that eastern line.
Yeah.
They were like 5-acre parcels that were marketed as horse property, residential. People could have horses and stuff. And those that live there now do, I believe, at least one of them.
So Director Ed, at the time she goes to build, she'll have her 50-foot easement along with the 50-foot easement required.
Yeah, as far as for her property, it'll be whatever the zoning is in that area. As far as if it's agricultural, I believe we're 20.
She's in the county.
Yeah, and I think she's in the county, so it'd be under general rural zoning. So I'm not sure what the county zoning is. I don't remember back when I used to be the guy that signed off permits in the county. But it's probably, I would think, 20 feet from the property line.
20 feet.
For her, yeah. But
Plus the setback we're requiring,
50.
right, yeah.
50 on the drawing.
Right.
So basically 75 feet.
Well, again, trying to pinpoint, well, maybe you can see it on what you just, if you just looked it up, but the farmstead that is there, that looks totally engulfed or enclosed on all sides. When I stand on my property looking west, there was a period of time where they were doing whatever they were doing, construction and whatever you called that lay down yard. They had, I mean, that kind of tells me that I'm, adjacent to the lowest end of that little notch, because when I'd look from my property west, all of their equipment was right there in front of me, and I wondered how long that stuff was going to be there because it was an eyesore. It's gone now, but I'm only saying that as a reference point to where my property is, that it's, right across from the lower end of that notch. But anyway, so I didn't know if there's any recourse for landscaping or, if my situation's different, it's not city, it's county. I don't know how that plays.
Commission members, looking at this, and thank you, Mr. Bagnall, for preparing this. It's helped me. But looking at this exhibit that Mr. Bagnall provided, 401-86-14, parcel 14, I suspect is the one you're talking about. It says, you said 1403, but I think it's 14.
The last numbers aren't on the map, right, Tom? I think it's 14,
So,
and that's, yeah.
looks to me like her, if I can get my, where's it? Top button? There we go.
Yeah, right there.
So the top of her property would be approximately at this location, adjacent to the site. And it would
Correct.
run south down to probably about here. Right in there is her property. So she sits back, her property is 268 feet wide by 822 feet long. There's about 822 feet separating her northern boundary from Steel Avenue. So 825 feet from Steel Avenue down is the north boundary of her property.
Mm-hmm. It's longer than it is wide. It's kind of a...
Yes, it's yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
So do you plan to build a house there in the future? Or?
I bought it as an investment property, so no. And I probably end up in my will. But you never know with that highway possibly coming in, and if more industry or whatever comes in and people need housing, there's a chance that...
Are there major drainage ways across your property? Looking at the aerial, are there any major drainage or washes or vegetation on your property existing?
No.
Just looking at the aerial photograph here, I'm just, looking at the aerial, and I'd have to go out, but I see a number of tributaries, looks like on the aerial, that run kind of in the direction of drainage, kind of from southeast to northwest. And it looks like you might have some tributaries or some areas where you have some washes that run kind of across your property in that area.
I've walked the property on more than one occasion. I don't recall anything significant or, that...
When's the last time you've been on the property?
Oh, well, a couple years.
Okay.
We've had some significant rain.
There is, well, yeah, there definitely are some washes or mini washes because, like I said, it kind of washed out the road, part of the road that leads to my cul-de-sac. So, I mean, yeah, the water's run that direction, I'm sure. So, no, I was never planning to build, but it's residential, and we were hoping to sell, at some point. And as I say, there's still hope for that if people are looking to build homes because there's a lot of growth. Thank you, though.
Thank you.
Mr. Goldman, could you step back up, the younger? I am trying to make sure I understand what it is that would best suit your family. We talked about the drainage ditch, and we also talked about the lay-down yard. Would you prefer having the lay-down yard closer to your house than the drainage area, so that the flat ground stays closer to the houses, or would you like it reversed from that? What is your preference?
As long as the laydown area, would be nice, but are they going to build on it? Are they going to put solar panels on it? I mean, there's nothing.
No, they will not be built on.
Okay.
Okay, that will make it clear that they will not build on that section next to your house. Right there in the first. They are going to build further back, and this DA2 has lots of solar panels on it, but it's back. It appears to be a couple hundred feet from the property line to the south. So you'll have a couple hundred feet there that there will be nothing built on at all, but they will be using that as a place to put the materials into while they're moving them around the site. So you're going to have a lot of traffic around that spot.
Do you? Yeah. Well, I wouldn't doubt that, but I guess that depends what you really want long term. Would you rather have that to lay down or the next to your house? Yeah. A drainage ditch or a lay down yard?
Mr. Goldman, what?
The point is, if you keep it out of the weeds of it, it doesn't make a difference.
That's right.
Okay.
I was going to say.
And they are.
I might get appreciate me taking my wheelbarrow out and cleaning the farm, and I might set something on fire and
No, probably that wouldn't be appreciated, and that probably would be problematic for you. Let's not do anything problematic, okay? But, is this company that's doing this the same company that built on the county land that's located closer to Florence or closer to Casa Grande?
Correct.
You're the same builders, same company? You're the company that didn't take care of the property that you said you would, and now you're going to do this property, but you are going to take care of this property even though you didn't take care of the other property.
And to reiterate, we've now allocated $100,000 to install and fix the landscaping and take care of the weed problem. So that's in process just now.
What about the future?
Our major consent too. We had one previous one say that they want to work with the the community and that kind of thing. Like when this was was still with Pinal Land Holdings with Jakob. I approached him. I talked to him on the tried to call him on the phone. I approached him here and asked if he'd give me a return phone call. Never returned my phone calls. Never talked to me. He said he would call me back after this meeting here. He never did. I called him 3 times and never got a return phone call. And then these people here. Greg Wirtz, who's now renting around us, he asked me numerous times saying, have they ever contacted you? I'm like, nope. He's had numerous contacts with these folks, but they've never ever contacted any of us, to discuss anything or any of that. We just don't deal that way with people, I realize they're a big company coming in, they're just going to do what they're going to do and leave us. Well, that's why we're pleading our case, because that's what's going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
So. Well, you're the only ones who are going to stop that.
That's right.
I hope we can stop it.
You're getting a bad rap out there. You better stand up
I know,
and say
and
something.
I don't even construct Pinal Central.
And I want to tell you something. All of us sat here and listened to the guy threaten us. You can't stop us from building the plant on 287. You can't. It's going to cost you $10 million if you do. Now, we all know what he said. So, you guys got a real reputation you got to back up now. We're going to ask you to, and these people right here are great farmers and great people, and they need to be listened to.
Got
okay?
it.
I'm just telling you. You take care of them and you'll get us on your side.
Absolutely. We will.
Do we have any teeth in any regulations that would require or make it enforceable on the things that we're talking about doing? Now, I understand the other properties in the county. We have no jurisdiction.
I believe the county has enforcement mechanisms that they could go in there and require the, and it sounds like they're working on some plans to do that. And I appreciate that. I think this company realizes that they got kind of a bad rap, that they haven't fulfilled what we thought they were going to deliver over there on the county side. The county has enforcement mechanisms to make them do dust control, traffic control. Weeds become a fire hazard. And I don't think that this company would want a large wildland fire going underneath their investment. I don't think they'd want that.
And a lot of weeds under their investment now.
Yeah, I know. And I wouldn't want to see a fire started over there because, their panels are going to go up. So I think that what we do have enforcement mechanism. We have the fire department with the weed abatement and weed control. We have, our condition of the conditional use permit was to provide landscaping. We've talked about beefing up the landscaping tonight adjacent to the Goldman's house. The Dugans are the other family in the area, the other dairy, sorry about that. But, we're going to have enhanced landscaping adjacent to their home. They're meeting all the criteria that we put on the conditional use permit. And we do have mechanisms. We have a code enforcement officer. I think this meeting tonight and all the discussions we've had have put the applicant on notice of what our expectations are going to be. We're going to see irrigation. And I know when I was at the county helping Mr. Bagnall, I was pleading for Mr. Bagnall to make sure that these land use issues that potentially impact property owners were addressed. And we got several of the conditions approved by the county, but not all. There was one condition we didn't get, but that's okay. We got 3 out of 4. But they haven't followed through with maintenance of the landscaping over there. A lot of those trees died. They've recently replaced them. I applaud them for doing that. And they need to maintain them. And the best thing they could do over there is put some kind of an irrigation system to those trees, because that's an investment you're going to have to keep replanting over and over and over again. And it would just be so much better to have, once those trees are established with some irrigation, those trees do really well in the desert. And, they make a great screen. And so, hopefully, it wouldn't take much to put a drip irrigation system, even over there on that other site. And we're not talking about this site. Over there with maybe a large holding tank with plenty of water that they can keep in there and irrigate with. But
okay. Just a second. What is worst case scenario? Let's say that these people that are talking tonight that are all agreeing to do this no longer work for the company. They've moved on to bigger and better things, because we're going to be here a long time.
Well,
57 years, so I'm going to be here a long time.
We're not dealing with people tonight and names and employees of a company. We're dealing with a land use case that involves a utility scale solar project that has impacts on neighborhoods, and your conditions of the approval are requiring certain buffers that we're going to ensure take place. Now, if they don't, they're in violation of the conditional use permit, which is a zoning violation.
What happens under that zoning violation? Can we stop them from producing electricity on that property? Can they correct it?
That's a legal question that I would rather not spend time answering for you tonight.
I understand.
I don't think anybody wants to put anybody out of business here in the city.
But I also don't want to put up with a situation
But I would think that, if you impose some penalties and fines, maybe we go out there and clean it up and assess a levy the cost of that cleanup against the property. I mean,
legally enter the property.
We enter property all the time when people don't adhere to requirements, especially when it comes to a public nuisance and a fire danger. Yep. We clean up lots all over town, and we lien property owners for the cost of that cleanup.
Okay. Yep.
We do it frequently.
Yeah, we do it quite a bit, as long as we have money.
Yeah, but I would hope, and I know that I know that there's a lot of concern about this and what happened at the other location. I hope they can fix those problems at the other location and do what they said they were going to do. I'm sure that as it's in the city, as I'm sitting here, now I may change. 2 years from now, you may not have me sitting here. I may be retired, hopefully. But I think that everyone here that has been heard tonight deserves a fair and honest conversation about how this property is going to be developed and maintained. And we can always go back to this record, which is a matter of record, and use these discussions and these comments in a court of law if we need to clean up the property or force cleanup.
And I hopefully it'll be here, God willing, in 2 years. And code enforcement works under me, so I direct the staff under code enforcement, and we do go after properties that are in violation.
Well, let me say there's another thing. There's one of the things we're blessed with in this area are farmers who've done a tremendous job. And you go out in the cotton fields, in some of these fields, they don't have weeds. They have cotton. They don't want weeds. And, there is a way to keep weeds removed off a property. You can put a pre-emergent down on the property. Apply that a couple times a year. It's expensive, but it's sterilized. It doesn't allow weed growth. And they'd be way ahead, trying to do, rather than having people go out there and pulling weeds or cutting weeds or chopping weeds, to put some kind of a pre-emergent herbicide down to stop that. There are other things that can be put on the ground that prevent or reduce the weed growth that they may be able to do. But I think they should look at all those mechanisms to make sure that weeds don't occur there.
Okay, Vice Chair, I'm going to shut up now. I'm ready to put this thing to bed.
You may have somebody, Mr. Vice Chair, you may have somebody else that wants to speak.
If I could just take 30 more seconds of your
Please.
time to show true character. Yes, from what you see from the highway, they've cleaned it up. Drive back there. It's all for show. This is what they do. They didn't finish it. They didn't finish it. They did just enough. Barely enough. This is their mode of operation. Please come by the house, pick me up. I'll take you for a ride. I'll show you every part of it. And I have weeds on my property. I do. But let me tell you something. I don't have these huge panels that are hazardous materials should they catch on fire, and hydraulic fluid running through that. It's flammable. So yeah, if my trees burn, my trees burn. But what's that going to do to the rest of us? We've got to live here while they get to go to their homes in Florida. Thank you.
Although we have made tremendous mistakes at Pinal Central, I can assure you, I was not the developer on that site. I am the developer on this site, and I can assure you we're going to do active weed management, and we're going to ensure the landscaping throughout the life of the project. The 20-year life that this project has, we're going to ensure we have installed drip irrigation. We have wells all over our property that we're going to use for the maintenance of the property during the life of the project. And I can promise you that this property is not going to look like Pinal Central. And we're going to fix our mistakes at Pinal Central already. We have already put in $100,000 for the maintenance and the weed management and landscaping of that property. We're actively working on it right now. It doesn't look like the landscaping is complete, but it's in progress, and I can assure you we're going to clean up that mess.
I can tell you that we just sat and we listened to the folks from Eastline Solar talk about how they wanted to be good corporate citizens and part of our community. I know that I speak for every one of us when I say we live here. And it's important to all of us that our community stays safe and secure and clean, so that we can attract other businesses to this area. Thank you. So, Mr. Director, it sounds as if they can move some of the stuff around to fit the Goldman's needs. We'd like to ask them to do just that. Looking at the map and what you've presented to us, if they move those few sections of retention on the west side, I'm sorry, on the east side, they're already buffered on the south side by a retention. The potential for the new freeway on the west side would give their property very adequate buffer. Is that suitable for you, Mr. Goldman?
Yeah, that would be okay. I mean, the only thing I'm concerned with, retention basins and retention basins. I just spent at the Christian school out there, Dr. Jim is the one that did a lot of the work. I just spent 3 hours out there, retention basin, cutting down volunteer jump. I'm sorry, but I don't think it's sport for people going out with a chainsaw and cutting down jumps. So if we're talking about retention basin, if they're willing to keep it clean, fine. I don't care.
They're going to be required to keep it clean.
Huh?
They're going to be required to keep it clean.
We have a list of landscapers that'll go clean it for them if they need to. If they can't find somebody.
Does anybody else from the public like to come up and address the podium? We'll close the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Vice Chairman, I move that we approve Coolidge PZ 190826 with the conditions that we have discussed on the laydown yard and the drainage basins to keep them as far, to keep those areas closer and keep the solar panels as far away from the east side of that section of DA2 is the section we're talking about of this construction.
And the additional landscaping.
And additional landscaping along that east side of DA2 so that it is keeping a perimeter look around that area to keep it protected from what the neighbor will have to see. For DA2 only, not for the entire project.
It's duly noted.
Can I get a second?
I second that.
All in favor? Aye.
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 We also have a tape of this, so I'll have Tim, we'll review it so we cover everything that was discussed.
Okay.
Would you check with the Goldmans before you give the final approval and let them see what we've come up with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can email. I'll have Tim contact you, and just so you can see what they'll adjust that site plan. So
Okay.
all right.
We can discuss dimensions and size of all of this. Retention basin,
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get the engineers that have done the site plan to work with you, Mr. Goldman. We'll be in that meeting with you, and
We'll call
sit
them
down
into the office, and then we'll sit around and make sure it's okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. But I want you guys to know what they're going to do before they do it. And we still have a little control. Not much, but
We have a lot of control.
Okay?
All right. Next item on the agenda, a proposed Cool PZ 19-09-29, a proposed amendment to the zoning code reducing the minimum required acreage or acreage required for a planning area development, a PAD, zoning from 50 acres to 5 acres, and removing.
Wait,
Chair, I think we skipped
skipped one.
Yep.
28.
We're
Did we
on
skip 28?
19. Yeah, we're on F right now.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was trying to look at my notes and I couldn't get them to match.
We have item number letter F. Cool PZ 19-09-28, a rezoning request initiated by Bradley and Carrie Patrick for approximately 1.38 acres of land located at 1139 East Lauren Lane in the KLC Ranch subdivision, Coolidge, Arizona, changing the zoning from PAD, Planned Area Development, to agricultural, legally described as follows. Lot 24 of KLC Ranch, lots 9 through 24, as recorded in Cabinet C, Slide 175, in the Office of the County Recorder, Pinal County, Arizona.
Vice Chair, Commissioners, this is a request at KLC Ranch. Back when it was developed in 2000, I believe, in the next in the city, and some of the houses were built in 2001. On this property specifically, they had a PAD overlay that was adopted, and the PAD overlay doesn't have the required booklet with it, but it just shows what the setbacks are going to be, and they're 40 feet for all structures. So what that does, it makes the property owners out there move like a accessory building 40 foot from the rear property line. Throughout the city and all the other places, including agriculture, we require 10-foot setback for an accessory building. So in looking at everything, talked to city manager, and we worked on this and thought the best way is to have them come in individually if they want and rezone this to agriculture. So eventually we hope to have all the properties back to ag, and if they all agree, but right now we're doing it one at a time because we haven't got everybody to agree to do that. So this is the first applicant that we have that's doing that. I believe Bradley and Carrie Patrick are here, I hope, and they might. Oh.
It's kind of warm in here too, huh? A little warm.
Yes. Hey, all we have to do is get this.
I wonder if we paid our I guess we did pay, I don't know. The lights are on. I don't know about the air conditioner.
We've had problems with the AC. We apologize for that in this room. So I'm not wearing my suit. It's too hot.
Does this have any effect on the taxes that these people are going to be paying for this property?
I do not believe so. It's based, the taxes, we looked into that, it's based on the use of the land and the buildings, so none of that will change.
And it's okay to build a house on agricultural land like that?
Yes. Yeah, it won't change. All it does, it allows for the rear setbacks and then animals, all that are based on square footage of the lot, no matter what the zone is, as long as it's residential. So they're okay either way. They can still have horses and do all that because they're controlled by square footage based on the animal. So.
Hey, if they want to do it, I said let them do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and we waived the fee on it, so we're allowing that. So we didn't charge for this.
Good. Okay.
And I believe you'll also have other people coming in.
Why were these originally PAD?
We looked for that, and I would imagine they wanted to have some sort of control.
I was talking, Tim Hansen, if he were here, he would tell you that the city adopted a zoning map, a citywide zoning map, the last time the city did a zoning code update. And when they did and adopted the citywide zoning map, this was called planned area development. There was never, to our knowledge, a booklet or an approval given by any governmental entity to specify what this PAD was. So I think it was just designated on a map. And so this actually is being done to benefit the property owners and give them a little more flexibility over what the current PAD allows. So I think it would be in everyone's best interest in KLC to rezone their properties to ag. It doesn't restrict their use. It conforms with the lot sizes, and it provides more flexibility in terms of their detached accessory building setbacks.
I said let's do it.
I know that the new subdevelopment to the southwest of there, they're currently building houses there. Is that ag?
That is, I believe it's. I
don't know right offhand. I think
they're 1 acre lots, and I believe they're.
I don't know. I'd have to look at that for you to
I
be
know
sure.
the other side of Nafziger is.
Yeah,
but I
that
don't know if
that little
side-
subdivision, it may be a P80. I'd have to look at that. I'm sorry, I
It
don't
does
know
have
the
an
answer.
HOA, but it's for the road is private. I actually was looking at a lot in there myself. So it's gated.
Yes.
Those are the only gated
I used to live the other side of Kennedy.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing about that is if it is a PAD, it was approved as a PAD and has a PAD booklet that sets forth the development standards, which this project doesn't have.
Right.
And so, that down there on Kennedy Avenue was approved by the city, and we know what the standards are for the setbacks there, and they're
It's 10 feet.
So.
We issued a permit.
Yeah.
The accessory structure. So yeah, city manager's correct. Yeah. We couldn't find anything other than just a setback page for that.
Is the property owner here?
Yes, I believe so. Yes. Would you like to say something?
Please come to the podium. We have to record you.
You'll be on our cable TV channel.
That and you're going to be famous and on TV.
Hi, I'm Carrie Patrick. I own Lot 24, and actually this is one of my neighbors, Rebecca, that is interested also. My husband was supposed to be here and handle this, so I'm sorry I'm limited on what I know. But we are trying to build an outbuilding, and the way we're zoned right now, I think it has to go out 40 feet?
40.
40.
Yeah, 40 from the back and the front and 20 from the side.
So it's just way too far in the back of our property. We wanted to move it more towards the front, halfway by the house
Sure.
and back. And that's why we're asking to be rezoned.
And we have extra applications for whoever else wants to apply. We have them up here.
I'm Rebecca and Tom Thompson, and we're at 1031 East Lauren Lane, which is lot 17.
In the very corner, yeah.
And I just had a couple of questions because we actually applied to put up a carport in our back, behind our block wall in our backyard through the city, and that's kind of what started this. The city approved our application. We had it 6 feet off the block wall to go above the 5-foot setback with the city. They approved it, and then they redlined it after it was approved, saying we had to be 20 feet off, which makes it just completely impractical. You couldn't get a car into it because of the way the house sat. So that's how we discovered this whole setback thing. So my question is, if this is approved, what's the process for the individual homeowner to get approved? What's the cost? And are the setbacks then? We were under the impression when we went through this process with the city that it would default to the city setbacks, which are 5 feet, was my understanding, from the sides of the property.
For an accessory structure?
For an accessory structure.
Not in agriculture. I think because they're more in the the way they are now. They're like 40 in the back, like you said, and 20.
Yeah,
on the
40
side.
in back and 20 on the sides, which clearly have not, I have to say, if you go through the subdivision, they have never been enforced. There's a shop at 1035 East Lauren Lane that's 11 feet off the back. That is a big shop. And so that was my question when we were talking with the city, how did these other buildings that were, obviously they had to be permitted, it's a big shop.
Well, if we didn't see it go up, or it was, then, I mean, yeah, it could have been done in the county if it was existing.
Well, that
prior.
was, I know, but nobody, that's my confusion. If you look at all the horse shelters,
Yeah.
because according to the PAD, any shelter, whether, as long as it's over 200 feet, 200 square feet, it should be meeting the setbacks. None of them do. And in the CCNRs, it's clear that they want animal structures at the back of the property. They want people to keep their horse pens and stuff at the back because of fly control and whatnot. So, it just doesn't make any sense. These setbacks have never been adhered to. They don't encompass what the CCNRs say, but yet we were refused our application.
I have to look at your specific and ask staff what happened on that. You're at 1031?
Yeah, and we worked with Dennis. He was great, but he was just like, yeah, these are the setbacks. But nobody, when I brought it up, I'm on the HOA board, nobody was aware of these setbacks on the board. So my question is, what do we need to do to get ag status if that makes us eligible? And what's the cost and what are the setbacks?
We have an application up here. It's free.
Okay.
You don't have to pay, and then just submit it to Tim, or just to the front counter, and then we'll run it through. There's yourself and some others that are interested in doing that.
And that would
So
make it a 10-foot setback on the side?
It would require a 10-foot setback, yes, on
Okay.
accessory buildings.
That's for ag.
Yeah, for agriculture.
And it won't affect our taxes?
No.
Nope.
What would be ideal for us, if I may, Vice Chair?
Please.
I'd rather not do these individually and have this commission act on every property owner. And if you were an HOA individual on the board, I would encourage you to talk to all the other property owners and have them, all of you work together and come in and do a massive rezoning on all these properties. One rezoning would be better than
Cover every lot.
20 of them or whatever.
They truly belong ag.
Well, is it possible to do like you guys were talking about with the commercial one, when you're revising the master plan, so that you have the option to do either one? That's not possible?
This property is, these properties were built similar to most agricultural properties or general rural in the county. They meet a minimum lot size. The problem we're having is the setbacks. And the setbacks that were identified when the PAD zoning was approved by the city. Our map was and that's what caused the problem. We created a PAD on this property, and there isn't a PAD document that really specifies in this area what the setbacks are going to be. So we have to go with our standard PAD setbacks, which are ridiculous. And so we're trying to resolve the problem here.
Right.
And so if everybody would come in and just rezone this to ag, the other option would be much more expensive because you'd have to do a new PAD amendment, and it gets really complicated. You have to come up with a booklet and come up with your own standards. Just go with a straight agricultural zoning. The setbacks are much more flexible for the accessory structures. And you're right. These feed the animal areas should be further away from the residents.
Right.
And so and you're right. I'm looking at the map. There's several structures that have been built in violation of the current PAD setbacks. Those may have been approved at the county level. I don't know. I don't know the history of those, but.
So is it free for all the homeowners
In that
forever?
area, yeah, in that area, yes.
KLC Ranch.
In
Yeah,
KLC,
Ranch, yeah.
there's no cost to change it to ag?
For this issue.
For this issue?
Yeah.
Okay.
To fix this, to go from what it is, PAD now to agriculture, we're waiving the fees on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next.
Thank you.
And I have the applications here, if you'd like to just grab one.
Okay.
Take to your neighbors.
So will I get approved tonight, please? I actually,
The ball moved.
I actually have a loud voice, and I told all my neighbors, because the letter went out about the meeting, and I told them, you don't need to show up because they're going to do the whole neighborhood, because that's how I understood it. So
No.
you'll get more people coming, because there are more people
Yeah,
interested.
strictly on your lot only, because we'd have to get what they call 207 waivers from everybody. But if you apply directly, then it's fine, because
Okay, great.
we don't want to force a zoning change on someone that doesn't want it. And
Right.
our worry was, and we were told that maybe not all the people in there would sign.
Right.
And
okay.
so,
Okay, I'll let them know, though.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Can we get a motion?
Vice Chair Halby?
Need to close the public, please.
We'll close the public hearing, and we'll entertain a motion.
Vice Chair Halby, I move that PZ 190928 be approved as written.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Looks like the last item on the agenda. Cool PZ 19-09-29. A proposed amendment to the zoning code to reduce the minimum acreage required for planned area development, zoning from 50 acres to 5 acres, and removing the provisions for waivers of the minimum acreage requirement.
Vice Chair, Commissioners, this is a request to take our PAD development standards that are in that we're currently adopting under zoning code and just reduce them from 50 acres down to 5 acres. So that allows us to bring PADs that are smaller to you. And what we did was we looked at our number of PAD. We had some requests for some smaller properties, and we were saying, well, you have to be 50 acres to be able to do a PAD. And then we started thinking, why is that? So let's look around to some surrounding communities, and a lot of them, including Casa Grande, are 5 acres. So then we really couldn't find a good reason, and being that we're pro-business and want to get more things coming into the city, and the PAD helps us control the standards with the site plans and everything else, thought it was a great idea to come before you to see if you agree with us and change this from 50 to 5 acres. And that'll allow us to do smaller PADs. And PADs allow us to put really specific regulations on a site, and we can trade some things off. Like say they want to do an open space that's bigger for a little more density in one area, we can do that. So this just allows us to do it on a smaller scale than the 50 acre.
When you were at Gilbert, what was their requirement?
Oh, Glendale?
Or
Oh, gosh.
Glendale, yeah.
I'd have to, I wasn't at the counter doing the zoning from like 93. So I don't remember. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well,
Casa Grande was 5.
I knew, working 20 years in Casa Grande, that it was 5, and when I saw 50, I thought that is excessive. There are very few developments that come in that are 50 acres, especially today.
Right.
But you can still do a 50-acre pad.
Oh, absolutely. This is just you can go as small as 5 acres.
You can go down to 5 acres
Or
up to
as big as you want.
5,000 acres.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That makes sense.
My understanding of a PAD is that when you open a PAD, we as a committee have a right to alter the normal standard setback, street requirements, all those kind of things for a particular individual that is building this pad. So if he's building 4 or 5 houses, since we allow a 1 acre thing, we could build a pad with 5 1-acre parcels, and we could do some changes that wouldn't normally be allowed under city code. Is that correct?
You can answer that?
Yeah.
Yeah, the answer is, the PAD is not designed to let people come in and do whatever they want willy-nilly. The PAD does allow flexibility. We create our own design standards within a PAD, our own setbacks, densities. If someone comes in here today and wants to build a subdivision in a single-family residential subdivision, their minimum requirement is 7,000 square foot for the lots. Well, through a PAD, somebody might want to come in and do 4,500 square foot lots. Well, we're not just going to let them do 4,500 square foot lots and, to just jam in a bunch of density. They've got to do other things. They've got to provide more open space. And by the way, we want to see some design standards on those residential units. We want to make sure that no 2 residential units side by side are exactly alike. And so you can start to look at design standards in a PAD that you wouldn't ordinarily have in a normal zone.
We allowed PADs for these new builders that built in 2003, 4, 5.
Yes.
Which allowed roads to be made much more narrow than should have been allowed.
I agree.
Based on what the fire standards are.
Well, I agree with you. I think that there are some roads in town that are narrower than they should be. But
On a house that was built in 1953.
and I think that was probably one of the first PADs that came in, and the city learned from that. Because I think they did, because I don't think you'll find any recent PADs where the standard is less than the typical local street standard. Yeah.
So I'm afraid of PADs that allow the Developmental Service Department or this committee to override the basic standards that we've set. Whether if the lot sizes should be smaller than 7,000 square feet as a standard lot, great, then let's change the code for that. But to give a pad where it can be varied based on who somebody is maybe or some other reason, I don't like that idea.
It's first of all, planned area developments is the new zone. I mean, very few people anywhere in any city today are doing developments that are not a planned area development with a development agreement. You won't find too many people that go out there and just build a conventional subdivision in an R1 zoning district and put in 7,000 square foot lots.
Right, so why don't we change that code and make it so that's a 5,000?
Well, because what you're doing is you're getting other provisions in a PAD that you wouldn't normally get under a standard zone. Like I said, open space, design criteria on the structures. So there's a number of things that you can get in a PAD that you wouldn't normally put in a standard in a standard zoning classification.
I agree that 50 acres is too big. But I'm not in agreement that 5 acres is correct either. I'd rather see 10.
Whatever you want, I mean.
Reduce it by, 80% reduction or something like that. I would say 10 I would be more interested in than 5.
5, 10, 50, it doesn't, it's just a number.
I think when we look at surrounding communities, the one thing developers are looking for, and we're trying to be, is have some standards across the board. We do that with a lot of things. So, I mean, it would bring us in line with Casa Grande. Not to say we want to be Casa Grande, but it would bring us in line with that city.
I'm not in competition with Casa Grande.
If you want to suggest 5 or 10 acres, 10 acres. If you want to keep it.
One of us that I know of likes living in Casa Grande, and that's because his wife does.
Yeah. Well, our recommendation to you is 5 acres. So if you decide to do that different, then it's up to you. But our staff recommendation is 5 acres.
Yeah.
Public?
We'll call out to the public. Anybody like to speak on behalf? No? We'll close the public. Entertain a motion.
I move that Coolidge PZ 1909-29, a proposed amendment to the zoning code, be altered to 10-acre minimum for a pad, which waivers can be set on that depending on the conditions that are defined.
It's just changing the number from 5 to 10. That's all we're doing.
Do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nothing else changes.
It's less than it was, so that's fine. That'll let us work. If we get smaller than that, we won't be able to do a PAD, but we'll just lose the project. So that's all right.
Well, and if the need be, we can always come back and revise to 5.
Sure.
Second.
I get a second?
This isn't. We're not doing this because of an individual. We just are looking at this. There's several code amendments that we're going to be bringing to the Planning and Zoning Commission to provide more clarity and perhaps even a little more flexibility to the development community to get some activity going here in Coolidge.
But 10 acres to me just fits better than 5. I guess I'm the only one. There's no second.
No second?
No second?
I'll second.
All right. Can I get another?
Give a vote. You got a second?
We did get a second?
No second.
Oh, he seconded it.
Oh, Phil seconded.
Okay.
Can we get a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. All right. Reports.
Just everything's looking well at this point. We have projects we're looking at down south next to Jacobs, the Pinella Land Holdings, and so we continue to look at those projects, and everything's going forward. Our apartment complex is 392 units moving forward. Everything looks good at this point. We're still building infill. We're trying to clean up the city. So just general moving forward on everything.
Gilbert, at our next meeting, would it be possible to bring us a overview of the city and show us what we've already allocated to solar?
To solar? Okay. Right. We can.
I'm curious how much of our city we've allocated.
That's a good point. And let me just say this. First of all, thank you, the solar people. Coolidge is really quickly becoming a model for solar and sustainability. Sustainable, energy. We're working with other companies that are looking at sustainable energy programs, and so we've allocated a lot of acreage. That doesn't mean all of that acreage is going to be consumed by solar. People have to have power purchase agreements, for one.
Right.
They have to have a market for this, and the larger utility companies, whether SRP or APS or a private group, have to find customers for this. And and again, this is Rick Miller's opinion. These areas, I've been here since 1990, and even the fastest growing areas, the land absorption has been minimal in and around where infrastructure is located. These areas are so far away from future growth. This is an absolute, in my mind, good neighbor. It's quiet, it's clean, it's just green energy, it's green. There's a lot of things that are great about these uses. I would
going the wrong
not
way.
personally have a problem living next to a solar array. I think I'd rather have that than having the crop dusters and the dust from farming. I love farmers, and I love agriculture, but they're all having difficulty. A lot of this farmland is going to be tumbleweeds. It's going to turn to tumbleweeds, and it has. I can show you in town, in areas in the city right now, they're worried about weeds. When that cotton goes away, it's weeds. And there isn't anything we can go out there and try to tell the landowner to disc it up, but then it's dust. It's a never-ending problem, So I think that these are good uses, and I think that over time, as we see the city grow and prosper and develop as these freeways come in, I would love to be in their position selling land adjacent to a freeway corridor or in the path of development. That's what the dairy farmers did and have done over the years. They go out there and they buy land on the outskirts of growth, knowing that it has a certain life to it, and then they sell their land for a great price. You're a real estate man.
I'm not against solar farms. I'm just concerned about the people that are living close.
Oh no, I think that was all these discussions were appropriate, and we're concerned too. Absolutely.
I see more of that in areas that has no houses, but I look at the Goldman family being surrounded basically on that, on somebody that's been farming or dairy that thing for 33 years, and suddenly they are surrounded, and I'd like some protection given. They have spent a lot of money, and they've done a lot for this economy in this area for 33 years, and I don't think they should be just
cast
abandoned.
aside.
No, I think you've addressed their concerns tonight very well.
And these people address their concerns.
Yes.
People did a great job of saying, yeah, we can do this, we can make this work, because I don't think they came in knowing that that was going to be a concern.
But we can bring in an exhibit that shows what's allocated thus far. But there's plans for more.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, and we know there'll be a maximum amount. We don't believe, and Rick, I don't know if you agree with me, but that everything we've approved solar will be solar. We know one of the things we've looked at is where could it possibly go, and we've trying to be proactive. We've approved areas with your consent, of course, you yourselves have done it, and the council's approval to get areas ready that could be good for solar. So that's what we've done. Yeah, we'll bring all that to you, and because you're not the only ones asking that question, the council's brought that up too, and so has the mayor. So they're asking the same thing. Okay, how much is enough, and where are we with this? So absolutely, we'll bring you that.
Awesome. Yeah, the other concern I have, Rick, is, like I said, and I'm sorry for interrupting, it's just going the wrong way. The power is. We need the power to go toward our airport, where our other industrial area is.
Well, back in the old days, when I was on council, we asked them to drop the power in the area because the SRP lines were going right through and not stopping, and then they said, well, we're going to stop at what's now Pinal Central. They said, you're killing us if you're going through our community without any power being available locally. They said, well, it may grow. Maybe we will drop some power here so you can take. So we can actually tap in, as far as I know, to the APS or whoever, and SRP into this area. So in fact, SRP brought the Trans-Canada facilities. So I mean, they're now a neighbor in this area. So in the future, we're hoping we'll be able to tap into that power as we grow, and we need that. Data centers need that. There's a lot of really high energy demand facilities coming into this area, so we're going to need more power.
Yeah, the high-tech community demands a lot of power.
I think these ladies and gentlemen in the audience can tell you we have more power in Pinal County than probably anywhere else in the state, with all the substations and everything else, all the different solar, the SunZia, all the other lines that are in this area. But you're right, we need power at the airport, and we're working with San Carlos Irrigation Project to upgrade their facilities to get more power there right now.
And we're working on a grant with Alluvion, which is part of Gila River, and they're also thinking of taking some out there. So I've got Ernie Felice, who's our grant person, working on that. So we're looking at that, see if there's a possibility we can get a grant to help us get the power out there.
Yeah, fantastic.
So it's the priority the city manager and all of us is. So if I don't get power out there, I may not be here next meeting. No, I'm kidding.
We need growth out there.
It's pretty brutal. Yeah, we do. We agree. That's a great big job generator for us in the future. It's a great asset. It's listed as a major regional airport by the county's planning department. So, you know, it's going to be good.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Call to the public. Anybody like to get up and speak, please? And if not, we'd like to adjourn.
Thank you all very much for all your help tonight. It's been a long night, so we really appreciate your help.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody.
I'm glad you came.